Okay, before I begin, I need to introduce you to someone special. Pup. 24 years of being a cat person crumbled the day this hairy ball of attitude and energy came into my life. Pup is a Shiba Inu, and I don't know if you know this, but Shibas are terrible to train. In fact, a trainer gave me a full refund because for the life of him, he couldn't get Pup to stay on command. This dog was something else. I mean, she knew the command, stop, but only after you said it a dozen times, and once that wallet she gnawed on was beyond saving. She knew down two, I guess, but boy did she take her sweet time jumping off the bed. Anyway, if there was one word that she completely and totally understood, it was food. I tell you, it didn't matter what I was doing or where I was. All I had to do was say that four-letter word and my pup would be sitting by my feet and giving me those horrible puppy dog eyes. At the time, I thought her selective hearing was adorable and sometimes annoying. But looking back on it, I realized just how astounding my dog was. I mean, this particular behavior started 3 days after Pup came into my life. 3 days, and she had already deduced that food was a very important word for her. Go figure that it took a dog 3 days to understand a concept that has taken most of my life to truly comprehend. Words have meaning. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Wow, Chris, you're actually in front of me and telling me how words are important. Thanks so much for that piece of knowledge. It's more than that, though. If I were to tell you to eat fresh, how long did it take for the image of a steaming meatball sub to float through your mind? What if I hum that McDonald's theme? Ba-dum-bum-bum-ba. Are you thinking about some mouth-watering fries? Taste the rainbow. Skittles. Yes, words are how we interact with one another, but with just a few words, I was able to make a few of you hungry. Isn't that weird? Okay, try this. Just do it. What are you thinking about right now? Shoes? Well-muscled people doing things we ordinary folks could only dream about? Maybe a swoosh. Why though? 3 words. Just do it. By definition, none of those words has anything to do with footwear. Yet just by hearing them in that order, does your mind wander in that direction? This is the power of words. 1 small step for man, 1 giant leap for mankind. 77 years ago, I have a dream. We the people. If you think about it, words, more than any other mortal implement, have shaped our history. A gun and a handful of bullets can take a few lives, but some animated rhetoric and an elevated tone can lead an entire nation off to war. Words. Have you ever taken a moment to think about how all of this is possible? Okay, you want to hear something pretty amazing? In the beginning, there was darkness, and then he said, "Let there be light," and then it was so. He said. He, the big man, God of everything, used words and reality bent to his will. Chronologically, this is the first of literally thousands of instances where the power of God's words shaped our history. Seriously, they're all contained in this really interesting book, which is appropriately nicknamed The Word of God. If you really break it down, words as a concept are divine in nature. I mean, God literally began our existence by speaking those 4 words, "Let there be light." We, human beings, are created in his image. Is it so alien a concept that, in our inheritance of his qualities, we have inherited the divinity of speech? You don't see cats or dogs speaking in any meaningful way to us, but when we speak to them, don't they listen? Take Pup, for example. Now, this dog of mine was kind of special. She didn't bark, per se. Instead, she kind of had this whimpery yip that she would use to try to communicate with me. That was it. Yip. It could range from anything from, "There's a potential playmate coming up from the driveway," all the way over to, "I just snored so loud I startled myself awake." Other way around. If I said food, she would materialize next to my foot and pretend to starve. Food isn't inherently part of the canine vocabulary, but despite that fact, my dog knew exactly what I meant when I strung those sounds together to form the word. Something deep inside told my dog that the weird sound that I made would lead to something good happening for her. Wow. I've gone and blown your mind wide open, haven't I? I mean, I've already told you today that you've learned that words are a fairly integral part of human communication. And you've also learned that dogs love food. Just wait though, it gets better. You know this already, but for the sake of this testament, I'll put this out again. My journey with God has not been easy. I'm a man who is probably a bit more logical and fact-based than is good for him. So when I was growing up and I heard the pastor tell me about how God speaks to all of us, I was psyched. Every night I'd get on my knees in the proper prayer position that we were all taught, and I'd have my talk with God, and then nothing. Obviously, I was doing something wrong. I mean, if you look in this good book, there's loads of examples, particularly in the Old Testament, where God literally speaks to people. Big, booming voice, like the tumult of an avalanche. This isn't the kind of voice that you'd miss, especially in a quiet room. This went on for years. I'm talking, but how do I know he's listening? He certainly isn't speaking back to me. Doubt. Yes, there's doubt because we're human and we can't help but doubt. Am I doing this wrong? Turns into, maybe I'm not important enough to talk to. Turns into, is he even there? All I wanted was some sort of proof. Yes, the pastor says that God loves me and the book says that he loves me, but where is he when I try to talk to him? Where is he when I'm feeling down and hopeless and the weight of the world on my back is forcing me down into the dirt? You want to know what? Back in 2021, I heard him clearly for the first time, and it was this moment of communication that's forced my hands to write this story and my mouth to share it with you all. Now, I need to clear something up first. Did I hear that voice thundering from the heavens? No, I did not. But that's all right, because a being as all-encompassing as him isn't constrained to a single method of communication. He didn't speak to my ears. He spoke to my soul. Remember what I said about Pup. She had no training or proper understanding of the English language. Yet, she still understood when I used specific words to convey specific meanings to her. God is all-powerful. He is the beginning and the end. He is everything. Our God is a being of such ultimate power, even the most mundane of tasks he completes is done with such magnificence that we can't possibly begin to comprehend it. Seriously, he started literally everything in existence with a simple phrase. He shaped the world we walk upon like the Play-Doh I used to eat when I was a kid. Last time I looked at the sun, I got 3 seconds of a solid stare before my eyes started hurting and I had to look away. Awesome eclipse. Yeah. The sun is bright, but it is the hint of a candle in the infinite darkness of space compared to the illumination of his glory and his power. He is that powerful. Now, serious kudos to you if you've ever heard his voice, but I honestly don't think that my mortal frame could handle hearing his voice directly. And I'm now comfortable with that thought because just because my mortal, logical, physical brain can't hear his words doesn't mean that the soul, my soul, has that impediment. Now, I know you realize this. Our souls are pretty awesome. This flesh that comprises our mortal shells, it's temporary, finite. It withers and ages. It bruises and bleeds. It degenerates over the years and eventually it rots away into nothing. Our soul, on the other hand, is forever. Each one of our souls is master-crafted by the most powerful entity in all of existence, and we're made with such care and attention to detail that it boggles the mind to comprehend. Our bodies may fail over the course of a fraction of a century, but our souls are built to bask in the glory of our God for all eternity. Even more, our souls play a crucial part in our very existence because it's these souls that connect us with our God and his will. Years ago, and I'm never going to forget this, I drove out from where I was stationed in Maryland to go visit my girlfriend at college. She was in Indiana. So here I was, standing in the dorm kitchenette, trying to get a stove that should have belonged in a museum to cook a decent steak, when my parents called to check up on me. They weren't too happy with the idea of me driving cross-country in a vehicle that wasn't the most reliable. So when they asked what I was doing, I lied and told them I was just chilling in my barracks. I was 20 at the time. I was an adult, a United States Marine. I was fine taking the risk of driving out, and I accepted the risk of spending 12 hours driving back to Maryland with very little sleep. Want to know what happened next? I broke down. The act of lying to my parents hurt something deep down, and I called them back 5 minutes later, bawling like a kid again and asking them to forgive me. Why? Because my soul recoiled at the deception and my dishonoring of my parents. Our lives are filled with events like these. Our society has labeled this phenomenon our conscience, the voice deep down that tells you not to steal or hate others or murder or covet. Want to know who else told you these things? Here's a hint. He's in that book I mentioned not too long ago. Let's look deeper, shall we? Have you ever had a premonition or a gut feeling? Maybe you were driving a little too fast and something in your gut told you to lay off the pedal. I mean, come on. You were running a little late to work today and you hit every red light so far. So who cares if you go 15 over? There aren't any cops out. Still, for some reason, you tap those brakes, and for the strangest reason, you feel calm about it. Why? Physically, slowing down isn't helping you at all. You're going to be late. Perhaps, and think on this, perhaps someone was looking out for you. He didn't scream, "Slow down, you're going to get in a wreck in a half mile," into your ears, but he still got his message across, didn't he? Here's another driving situation. Because this is Clarksville, and oh boy, do we have some interesting drivers on the road. I was driving on Ashland City Road and coming up to the red light where it intersected with Madison. The road split from 1 to 4 lanes, 1 left turn, 1 right turn, and 2 forward lanes. I decided to stay in the leftmost middle lane. Nobody was behind me, though the left lane was pretty packed. So I'm slowing down as I get up to that intersection. You know how your brain kind of goes into autopilot when you drive? Yeah, mine was there. Suddenly, I felt this urgent need to focus my attention on that lane to my left. For some reason, one of the drivers in that left turn lane decided that they did not want to turn over and jerked toward my lane at an angle that would likely have resulted in the right front end of their vehicle merging with the lower half of my body. I evaded. But seriously, I had no physical reason to even look in that direction. They were behind me and had, up until a second earlier, been motionless. He speaks to us, even though our bodies may not be listening. Not all of us are blessed to hear directly his voice, but we still regularly receive his will. We find ourselves drawn to church, to do kind acts to one another, to live for others at the expense of ourselves. Beings of mere flesh and blood do not simply do this. Simple animal survival is about advancement of the self. Spending your hard-earned money to feed someone less fortunate than yourself goes completely against the Darwinian nature of biological survival. Yet we still follow his will because we hear our God, even when our mortal ears do not. He speaks to our souls. Pup needed me for survival because without me and my magical summons, she would starve. She did not understand the meta associated with my words. She did not have the conception of letters, human language, or grammar. Why should she, though? As much as I loved my dog, I understood that she was limited by her biology in such a way that she would never understand the intricacies of human speech. The beautiful thing, though, is that this particular limitation didn't matter, because even though she didn't understand me, she knew that her life got better when she heard me use those words. We, human beings, are a lot like dogs, and I'm not afraid to say that I'm very much like my pup. Some of us, those rare breeds, hear better than others. In fact, I have conviction that there are those out there who hear God's voice as they did in the Old Testament, in the big, booming voice I had always imagined as a child. The rest of us, though, can rest content with the knowledge that even though we don't understand the words that are spoken to us, an instinctual, spiritual, soulful receptor inside us translates those words into a form that our limited perceptions can comprehend. For years, I had struggled with doubts that God was listening to me. I was insubstantial. I was incorrect. I was presumptuous that I was important enough for the Lord of everything, that he would spare a moment for me. I'm writing this as my testament that I could not have been more wrong. Our God is a being of ultimate mercy and compassion. He is a being that transcends time and space in such magnitude that to truly ponder his scope would be as an amoeba to try to comprehend the vastness of an ever-expanding galaxy. It is human hubris that insists that our God can conform to our human perceptions. Of course he has time for us. He speaks to us constantly. He watches over us, guides our souls onto the paths that he needs us to walk, the ultimate terminator of each path being his embrace, and a victory that surpasses any mortal comprehension of the concept. My God is always listening to me, and he is always talking to me. Now that I've stopped putting all my efforts into doubt, I believe I can even hear him a little better, and I can follow that path that he has led for me.